Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today's read was out of Psalm 40, 49, 50, and 73. Just four short Psalms. It was an easy read day, whereas some of these days we get bogged down with quite a few Psalms, but they're shorter than these longer ones, so it all adds up. We're going to get right into today's read. When I read 49, it read more like a proverb out of Song of Solomon than it does a psalm, but it's still a really good psalm. But when you read that, or if you read that, see if that makes any sense to you, if it's more like a proverb than a song. Um, Jumping into chapter 50, verse 6, we've talked a lot about God being a God of justice, all justice coming from God. He is the God of justice. Verse 6 says, "And the heavens declare his righteousness, for God himself is judge." We've talked about the very throne of God is founded on justice and righteousness. So it only makes sense. It says, the heavens declare his righteousness, for God himself is judge, not a judge, the judge. It only makes sense if God is the judge and justice comes from him. He's the judge of all justice, the ultimate judge. Now let's jump to Psalm 73. There's 6 takeaways. I kind of broke this long psalm down into 6 sections as I read it and looked at it, studied it. Number 1, it starts out with this man or woman. They love God. They follow God's principles. They're a righteous person. They follow the rules. Number 2, this person starts comparing themselves to others. They start, and this goes right into number 3, when they compare themselves to others, they start getting bitter because they see maybe a politician is getting away with a bunch of stuff and nobody calls him on it. Doesn't get in trouble for it. This person does all this stuff and goes free, and they start seeing all these things. They take their focus off God and start looking around them and saying, man, things aren't right. And they get bitter and angry about this. I can totally relate to this verse, and maybe that's why I'm spending more time on this chapter than others. Number 4, this person hopes for the destruction of these people, which only seems right. We want righteousness, we want justice, so we want to see the evil people punished. We want to see them get their just desserts and what they deserve. So in a way, as a law enforcement officer, this kind of goes to how we sometimes go on calls or we see traffic violations and we take it personal and we get angry about it. Instead of just doing our job and enforcing the rules and trying to teach people how to obey the rules, we take it personal and we get angry with people. This is exactly what's happening in Psalm 73. Number 5, the 5th point of this is this person who's taken all this personal and he's gotten angry because he's taken his focus off of God and righteousness and justice, and he's starting to look around and compare himself, realizes that what he's doing is wrong. It's not in God's will. It's not what God wants for him. So the 6th point of this person is restored mentally, emotionally, and spiritually because they take their focus off of the bitterness and the anger and they put it back on God. And they recognize that, just like we read in 50, all justice belongs to God. It doesn't belong to me. I have no right to get angry about it. It's just the path that God's put me on. It's the works that God has created for me to do to be a law enforcement officer in the criminal justice system. Remember, he's the God of justice. It's all his. So I'm going to enforce and do my job. I'm going to teach and train. I'm going to love well. I'm going to serve my community and rely on God's justice. I'm going to trust him. And man, he's sovereign. He knows what's going on. He's in control of all this. We need to do our jobs, and we don't need to take things personal. So this is, for me, was an outstanding law enforcement takeaway, because of how it reflects how I live sometimes and how I act sometimes. And it gives me the proper direction on when I find myself in this dark spot of comparing and getting bitter. It gives me direction and path how to get back to God's righteousness. So if you haven't read 73 yet, man, go back and read it. Take your own notes. It's an incredible law enforcement psalm. So anyway, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Be safe.